Welcome all. I think we'll just give it maybe 1 more minute before starting, just to let a few more people join in, and then we can. All right, welcome all to this webinar on locking or concerning locking Asia into fossil gas. And so on behalf of the convening organizations of this webinar, which includes Clean from Bangladesh, Indus Consortium from Pakistan, Trend Asia from Indonesia, Recourse, Big Shift Global, and NGO Forum on ADB, welcome to all of you. I'm Tanya Roberts-Davis, and I will be facilitating this discussion. Translations are being offered in Bahasa Indonesia, Bengali, and Urdu, and this is also being broadcast on Facebook Live. So as all of you know, this is happening just 1 week before the World Bank Spring Meetings will open in DC. So it's a very timely and also urgent discussion that needs to happen. As you will hear from each of the speakers in turn, communities and civil society groups across the region are challenging the World Bank, as well as regional development banks like the Asian Development Bank and Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, to stop locking national energy systems into dependency on fossil fuels, and to take seriously the grievances of affected people, as well as their calls for remedy and reparations. We know that at this very moment, the World Bank's own climate change action plan, as well as policies, promote the use of fossil gas as a transition fuel, despite this being absolutely incompatible with the urgent steps that are needed to avert exacerbating the climate catastrophe. And it's in contrast to what is needed in terms of supporting growing member countries power down and phase out fossil fuel infrastructure. So today, each speaker will bring unequivocal evidence of what the World Bank's investments in fossil gas have meant to local communities in terms of the environmental, economic, social, and climate-related havoc and devastation, making it clear that not only is there simply no time left to waste for the World Bank to keep on this pathway of business as usual, but that harm that has already been done requires remedy. As the speakers will allude to, it is also critical at this very moment to recognize the particular context of multiple overlapping crises, meaning more funds for fossil fuels and false solutions will exacerbate the problems faced by coastal communities, fisher folks, small-scale farmers, marginalized ethnic minorities, and indigenous peoples, as well as the urban poor. it also means that speaking out on these very issues or raising questions is increasingly being met with repression. Specifically, that civil society groups are being met with accusations of threatening national security when they raise questions about the energy system. And this has specific repercussions, as you will hear, for women rights defenders, as well as Indigenous peoples taking a stand to defend their land, territories, and resources from becoming sacrifice zones. Specifically as well, you will hear about the investments of the World Bank in Vietnam, which we would like to bring specific attention to, given the resounding calls for the release of leading environmental advocates who have been imprisoned there following their work to call for justice for those harmed by large-scale energy and extractive projects. And so finally, we are, as you will hear, you'll hear about how the World Bank and MDBs, as well as donor governments, if they are sincere about supporting a just energy transition, it's incumbent upon them to leverage and steer clear of fossil fuel investments and false solutions, as well as to implement explicit protections against retaliation and reprisals for climate and environmental defenders, as well as land defenders. And with that, I'd like to pass it on to our first speaker, Fran Witt, the campaign manager at Recourse. Over to you, Fran.
Great. Thank you very much, Tanya, for that introduction, and specifically, I think, for highlighting the role of fossil fuels in creating human rights violations in the countries where we're working. It's a real pleasure today to be able to be part of this event to launch our shared report, which is called Stop Funding Fossil Gas. This report's been contributed to by all of the speakers today, and it's specifically being launched in advance of the World Bank Spring Meetings, which happen next week. And we're specifically calling on the World Bank to stop providing public finance for gas expansion in Asia, but also in other parts of the world. So thank you to everybody who's contributed to that report, and we'll continue to the ongoing work over the next few days. I'm going to share my screen, and I hope that you can see that okay. It doesn't want to move across. Hang on. The report that we're putting out today, as you can see, this is the front title page of the report. It's a report that robustly calls for the World Bank to stop providing finance and policy support for fossil gas. And that image there is of our friend and colleague Mehedi, who's going to speak in a minute on the front page. And I put the link to that in at the bottom there on the left-hand side, and I'll include that also in the chat later. So just a very, very brief background on the World Bank Group. So many of you will be familiar with the World Bank. The World Bank Group is made up of actually 5 institutions, which include the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, which is sort of for more middle-income countries, or countries striving to be middle-income, and then the International Development Association, which is more focused on providing finance for lower-income countries. MEGA is the multilateral investment guarantee agency, and that provides guarantees to the private sector to support investments in different products and infrastructure. And the International Finance Corporation, which specifically supports enables the private sector to engage in development projects and infrastructure projects. There's another small institution that's part of the World Bank group, but then there's also the IMF that sits alongside all of these. And the World Bank has two goals. One is the aim of tackling extreme poverty, and the other is creating shared prosperity. And at the moment that's being discussed and potentially might expand to include a new goal on climate and climate resilience. So the World Bank, not only is it really important in terms of the amount of finance and policy that it sets, but it's also an important global standard setter. So what the World Bank does is incredibly important in setting the norms and standards for the way other banks behave and also how the private sector behaves. And I think that that's particularly critical when we're thinking about why it's important to try to get the World Bank to stop funding fossil gas in particular. So there are three processes that we're concerned about that are ongoing at the World Bank at the moment. And the first is that they've just published their Paris Agreement alignment methodology. This is the one that I will talk about the most. The Paris Agreement alignment methodology is supposed to support the World Bank in working towards keeping global warming below 1.5 degrees C, as aligned with the Paris Agreement. But as you can see, there are a couple of contradictions in what they are, in what they're proposing. So the Paris alignment methodology is calling for an alignment with 1.5, but in fact, what it contains isn't consistent with that. So to start off with, the methodology allows for continued support for fossil gas in exceptional circumstances. But unfortunately, because the World Bank has left the door open to support for fossil gas, it really means that the expansion of fossil gas, particularly in Asia, but also in the rest of the world, has become unstoppable. And the other problem within the Paris Alignment Framework is that they use the nationally determined contributions, or NDCs, as a benchmark. And as I think most of us know, the NDCs will contribute, if taken in aggregate, to global warming of 2.3 to 2.6 degrees, which is obviously catastrophic climate change. So from our point of view, the World Bank has a critical role in supporting countries to enhance their NDCs based on the principle of common but differentiated responsibility. So today you'll be hearing from our esteemed speakers, as Tanya said. So they'll be talking specifically about examples where the World Bank Group has continued to support the expansion of gas and LNG, and how that has created environmental damage and human rights problems, but also contributed to the climate crisis in different ways. So just very briefly to touch on why we're concerned about gas, particularly in Asia. Europe's push to replace Russian pipe gas with liquefied natural gas, or LNG, has caused prices to hit record levels in 2022. So they've been the highest that they've ever been. So whilst the World Bank had supported the expansion in LNG over the previous several years, it became less viable in 2022, and the demand for LNG dropped because of the massive price hikes for the first time since 2015. So in places like Pakistan and Bangladesh, it meant that the countries were unable to afford the LNG cargoes, and this ended up resulting in gas and power shortages, which in turn stunted economic growth in some of the key sectors and also strained their critical foreign exchange reserves. Also, I think, as we're all well aware, gas and LNG produce significant methane and CO2 emissions, as well as creating toxic air pollution. So although gas is considered a lower carbon energy than coal, it's still nevertheless a high carbon polluting form of energy. And finally, I think the energy model that the World Bank has promoted based on LNG has created significant energy insecurity and price volatility as LNG has been traded to the highest bidder. So it isn't the silver bullet, I think, that the World Bank initially thought when it supported the expansion of LNG about 5 years ago. So I just wanted to explain to what extent the World Bank has supported the expansion of gas and LNG, because I think that they will often describe it as, oh, it's only in exceptional circumstances. This isn't a routine thing. It has to be only when there's no other alternative for countries for them to be able to develop. But in fact, what we've found and what our speakers will show today is that that's not really the case. And the expansion of gas and LNG is present in a lot of the policy of the World Bank. So it starts with the Climate Change Action Plan, which is the overarching climate strategy of the World Bank, which allows for fossil gas expansion. And then it's present also in the new country climate and development reports. So you can find examples of acceleration of LNG being part of the energy plan, for example, in Vietnam. And then it's present in other different forms of policy. So development policy operations, which are support directly to governments, in technical assistance. And this is where the World Bank provides support for countries to develop their energy system, or it can be for other things as well. But there's examples of technical assistance that have specifically focused on the expansion of gas and LNG. And there's another example of that in Vietnam. And as I mentioned before, it's even allowed for within the Paris alignment methodology. So those are just some examples of where gas and LNG are allowed for in World Bank policy. And then it's also allowed for in finance, so through direct finance, through indirect finance, so finance that goes through financial intermediaries, and through guarantees to the private sector. So I would say it's not just exceptional. I think it's endemic in the World Bank's approach. And this is what we want to try and bring an end to over the next weeks, months, and years. So thank you very much. And I'll hand over now to Mehedi to give an example from Bangladesh. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Fran. Thank you, Tania, for moderating the whole session. I have no presentation. I want to talk a little about a project in Bangladesh, which is called Bhola Independent Power Plant, or in short, Bhola IPP. How much time I have, Tania, please?
Between 5 and 7 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So let me give a context first. Bhola IPP is a standalone project of Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. The loan of total 180 million, in which AIB provided 60 million, given to the Shapoorji Pallonji Group, which is Indian conglomerate, to establish a 225 megawatt fossil gas based power plant in Bhola, which is situated at the mouth of Bay of Bengal, and it is only the only island districts of Bangladesh. So the power plant is situated on the bank of a tidal canal, which is called Dehular Khal, and in between another canal is which is on another tidal canal is called Mandartoli Shakha Khal. So when they started construction of the project, they used to dump all of the debris and the wastage in these canals, and then in a process, on the pathway of this destruction, the canal dried up by 2019, and the people who used to use this canal for bathing and to wash their clothes, to wash their utensils, they're seriously affected by that. And secondly, from the construction site, the bathroom of the laborers, they put 2 pipelines from the bathroom to the canal. So all of the human wastage came to the canal, and people could not anymore use the water for their daily uses. So that happened, and then due to the canal dried off, every year the people started affecting or started experiencing inundation during the high tide and during the monsoon. So a lot of around more than 1,000 of farmers lost their crops due to this inundation in every year, but they are not compensated totally. So second thing is, during the acquisition of the land, they used the local influential people, especially the political leaders, to take the land without any compensation. And also, they took more land than they actually recorded to take. And then people filed several complaints to their grievance redress mechanism, and there was no result. So finally, we filed a complaint to AIIB, and they also refused to give proper justice to the people. And third thing is, they constructed 3 jetties for taking oil and taking different type of materials to the power plant. They constructed the jetty in the Dehular Khal and almost grabbed half of the canal by the jetties. And these are the issues. And then this power plant started commercial operation in December 2020. And then suddenly the Shapoorji Pallonji Group sold the power plant to Actis Energy in UK and Actis Embargen of Mauritius, this Actis Group, 2 subsidiary of Actis Group. To be mentioned that the total cost of the power plant was 269 million, but they sold the power plant to this Actis Group against $407 million. So then MIGA, the multilateral investment guarantee agency of World Bank, MIGA gave a guarantee of that loan taken from 6 different banks, especially multinational banks, which is Bank of China, DBS Bank Limited, ING Bank, Mojiho Bank Limited, Sumitomo Mitsui Banking Corporation, and Society Generale. Here is an interesting thing is where politically these all authorities of this bank are against each other, but here they join together to finance a fossil fuel project like fossil gas-based project in Bangladesh. So the power plant started a commercial operation in 2021. So according to the agreement, the total tenure of the power plant is around 22 years. That means it will phase out by 2043, according to the current agreement. But the practice, usual practice in Bangladesh is that it will be, always the gas-based power plant used to be extended for around more 15 years. So at least this power plant is going to be, phased out actually, practically by 2053 or 2055. Thus, the target of zero emission by 2550 will be failed totally. And already Fran mentioned that the fossil gas is actually 83 to 87% of methane, and the leakage of methane is really, really dangerous for climate change. As a most vulnerable country in the world, like Bangladesh, the project is really, really a destructive project here. So second issue is the capacity payment. So according to the power purchase agreement between the government and the sponsor companies, the government will have to pay around $34 million per year as capacity payment, even if the government doesn't take any electricity from the power plant. So the investment of $269 million will be recovered within 7 years of the operation. But the agreement is for at least 22 years now. Third thing is the market volatility. Already Fran mentioned it, and everybody knows that the price of LNG has reached to $34 per million metric, British thermal unit, MMBTU, from $3.5 per MMBTU. That means the price increased around at a rate of 1,000% in a year. So this is the things. But interestingly, when MEGA took the responsibility of the loans, they didn't resolve the complaint of land grabbing. They didn't resolve the complaint of retaliation and non-payment of the compensations. Now the demand should be from our side is directly to the MEGA that first one, resolve the complaints and ensure adequate compensation to the people very fast. Second one is re-excavate the Mandatoli Shakakhal and compensate the affected farmers for damage which has been or was and is and are occurred for the damage from inundation. Third thing is ensuring the adequate measures to ensure participation of female counterparts in the communities in the management of energy sector in that, particularly the Bhola IPP, and stop supporting fossil fuel, especially fossil gas, and especially LNG in Bangladesh. Thank you very much for listening to me. That's the voice from Bangladesh.
Thank you, Hassan Andy. From there, we have two further speakers after this. And so first up, we'll hear from Andre Prasetyo. He's with Trend Asia, based in Indonesia.
All right. Thank you so much, Tanya. Let me share my screen. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Andre Prasetyo. I'm currently a researcher at Trend Asia. We are a non-profit organization that focusing on accelerating the renewable energy transition in Asia. And I'm focusing more on research in energy policy and fossil fuel finance. And this is my presentations, expanding gas infrastructures, delay actions on climate and clean energy transition in Indonesia. I will start with this such a brief introductions, World Bank and gas expansion in Indonesia. World Bank current strategy for investing in Indonesia in the crucial next few years. The country they have country partnership framework 2021 until 2024 supports the accelerations of deployment of natural gas and biogas. And then this strategic document includes the aim of improving the investment climate for private investor by strengthening natural resource governance, gas infrastructures, planning, and regulatory reform. As we know, the World Bank has their own commitment to stop investing in fossil fuel, but at the same time, this document sounds like they are currently sending a mixed signal to the public and then to the specific country recipient or country partner. And there is a specific mentions of planned technical assistance to support gas and alternative energy sources that will form the basis for the new gas project in Indonesia. This might include, of course, the new fossil gas power station that the government of Indonesia currently wanting to they commit to stop building a new coal power plant, but at the same time, the Indonesian government wanting to convert the coal power plant that previously removed to be the gas power plant, and also that potentially the policy that's supported by the World Bank potentially will develop the pipeline and ports and LNG import terminal and also regasification plant in the regions. And another thing is this project will also bring the environmental and health impact, serious one, as well as the methane emissions that will contribute significantly to Indonesia's greenhouse gases emissions. And then in the World Bank Indonesia Economic Prospect Report, a decarbonization scenario will see Indonesia to double its installed gas capacity in the period of 2021 to 2040. So this scenario is absolutely contradicts to the IEA net zero emissions by 2050. The target is IEA is 2050 roadmap that requires the word natural gas. I personally doesn't really like the terms of natural gas, but fossil gas demand to more than half to keep global warming below 1.5 Celsius scenario. So this is also one of the critical notes that me and also colleagues from Recourse found. And we also deeply concerned about World Bank development policy finance for ports that expand LNG. So World Bank has a development policy finance. This is the numbers. It's about Eastern Indonesia port-led development project. And the problem is the document itself does not explicitly mentions the use of new port development at Kupang and Ambon as being used for LNG import, floating storage unit, or regasifications, or for outlying ports to be used as a satellite distributions terminal. So this is what I found. This is what we found, that even though the World Bank is only is not mentioning explicitly about the use of new port, and then in our letter of correspondence, they also denying that this project is also supporting the LNG project. We found in the also document and also in the satellite distributions in the satellite views, we know that that port or that project is actually used for not only for a fishing port or a logistical port, but it's also potentially using for the LNG terminal and also power plant. And this DPF, in a paper, they say that it's for enhancing logistic performance in Eastern Indonesia and leveraging private sector financing. But a lot of evidence publicly available to suggest that this port will be used in this way: regasification in Kupang, LNG terminal in Ambon, and LNG port expansion in Maluku province. This is a typo. And this is the official document from the Ministry of National Development Planning, also explicitly stating that that project is also include as the complexes of the port, they include the LNG terminal and power plants. And then what is the trouble with the gas in Indonesia? So the World Bank plans to expand the gas infrastructure is absolutely pose a huge threat to meeting the global goals of Paris Agreement and avoiding the increase of the climate change. And it also undermined the effort to offer climate change. In 2019, the gas itself accounted for 20% 2% of all fossil fuel emissions. And we know that fossil gas is composed by hydrocarbons and methane that is significantly more powerful greenhouse than carbon dioxide. So this is as the illustrations. Indonesia energy transition is need progress, not a progress. So it's currently we are heavy reliance on coal power generations, and then we are almost locking into the gas as the power supply. If the government just taking the pathway from converting from the coal to the gas, rather than leapfrogging from coal to renewable energy. And this is the illustrations of the, this is the data of renewable energy mix in Indonesia. Our study, Trinasia study, found that the Indonesian government is only adding 0.8%, is less than 1% each year, even though they have a target by 2025, 2030% of renewable energy mix, but so far they only have around 12%. So we need more than 11%, but each year we only have less than 1%. So it means that we need more, or we need extraordinary effort to achieve that target. So this is the case for energy transitions in Indonesia. The government claimed that to do energy transition, we need around 225 billion US dollar, equivalent to our 1.5 annual Indonesia state budget. That World Bank at this moment is also joining the Energy Transition Partnership, JETP, which is still having a vague or blurry standpoint. Is that going to support gas or no? So we expect that the World Bank Group in any kind of forms of policy or support for the recipient countries will root out the gas as part of the deals in Indonesia. And then we have a deeply concerns about the massive gas expansions in Indonesia, especially because it's leading to Indonesia's dependency on fossil fuel, which are costly and subject to extremely volatile market price fluctuations. So the gas is not really, if the gas is bridging fuel, or they claim it as bridging fuel, it means that the bridge that leads to nothing, because this source of energy is really having a lot of disadvantage for the countries. And then this is also leading to energy insecurity and inflated energy prices. This is a huge risk. And also the answer to energy security in Indonesia lies not only expanding fossil gas, but in fast-tracking expansion of inexhaustible supplies of renewable energy. And of course, the gas infrastructure will impeding the real energy transition towards the clean and renewable one. And what is our recommendations? I would close to this several recommendations. I think we have a call to World Bank to urgently redirect and indirect redirect the direct and indirect finance away from fossil gas, both private investment and public policy, to practice and to align with Paris Agreement or 1.5 scenarios. And of course, the next one would be ring fencing public finance for energy in Indonesia to support a just transitions away from coal, rather than just focusing on the next fossil fuel, which is fossil gas. And of course, exclude the finance support, the constructions of ports, that deepening access to existing port, transportation or processing fossil fuel. And like what I previously mentioned, if the project is not explicitly related to the LNG, for example, they have to know that if a project supports the fossil fuel sector, makes significant contribution to it, they need to exclude it from support. If this is not explicit, the World Bank must investigate the link with the LNG and wider fossil fuel and provide renewable energy sector alternative. So this means that you need to be aware any kind of the loophole, including its enabling environment. Maybe it's for the logistical port, but at the case, they also include the LNG. The Indonesian government also include the LNG. And then apologize for taking a bit longer, but would close this session with the last one is World Bank should finance sustainable and renewable energy sources and increase support for energy storage grid rather than just focus on power generation that sourcing from coal and gas. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Andre. So now from going first with hearing from Fran with the overview, from Mehdi with the real human impacts faced in Bangladesh and the shift of financing from initially an AIIB project to now being a project that is held under the World Bank Group. And then hearing from Andre with the background of what is happening in Indonesia and the recommendations from civil society groups. We'll now move over to hear from Fiza, based in Pakistan, who will tell us about the issues there. And she's with Indus Consortium. Over to you, Fiza.
Sorry, Tanya, I was disconnected.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah, shall I start?
Absolutely, yes, go ahead, thank you.
Thank you. Right, that's great. I hope you all can view my PowerPoint presentation. That's great. Thank you. So thank you all. It was really great to have the wonderful insights by all the presenters. And today I would like to present Pakistan's case today. We are the seventh most vulnerable country to climate change, and which is I'm really sorry for that. I'm facing little. March, can you please? Shall I'm feeling some problem in changing my slides. Can you please do it for me? I'm really sorry for that.
Okay, then just give me a second.
Please.
I'll share my screen. Can you
Please
see
do.
my screen right now? Okay.
I'm really sorry for that.
It's okay.
Yeah, please.
Okay, just tell me when I need to move it.
Yeah, sorry. Oh, sorry about that. Mhm. Don't know what to do with it. Please. Yeah. So I'm really very sorry. On the second slide, please. Thank you. So we are the seventh most vulnerable country to climate change with less than 0.8% contribution to climate change. But here you can see the real-time pictures of catastrophic floods of 2022, where Indus Consortium and its Grow Green network members did response. And still the process is going on because in several areas, the water cannot be receded. And again, we are facing the new spell of rains. And the floods of 2022 were not riverine, but due to heavy rain because of rapid climate change. And according to NDMA, Pakistan received 166.8 mm of rain in August, which is an increase of 241%. And only Sindh province has witnessed a 786% increase in the monsoon rains. So as a result, 33 million people are adversely affected. And our big towns of Khairpur, Nathanshaw and Jhudo are submerged underwater. And 6,50,000 pregnant women were forced to stay in the camps, and 65,000 have given birth to babies in camps with the health facilities underwater. Next, please. This is what another scenario of heat waves with the record of 51 degrees centigrade temperature in district Nawab Shah and Jacobabad. Next, please. We all, talk about and work on, of course, Paris Climate Agreement, which is a legally binding international treaty, and talking about 1.5 degrees centigrade temperatures commitments. And the Paris Climate Agreement really aims to strengthen the country's ability to deal with the impacts of climate change and support them in their efforts. And the developed countries of global north, including US at top, are the real polluters in the name of industrialization and development. Next, please. The global financial institutions, including World Bank Group and IMF and their parent country, have made public their targets aligning with Paris Agreement goals, but it is really sorry to have their paradoxical policies and practices, as already our other speakers mentioned, and Fran has also talked about that a lot, that though their policies are aligned with the Paris Agreement targets and net zero pledges on one hand, but practically they are funding fossil gas as a transition fuel on the other. And they are continuously investing gas-based projects in Pakistan. And we all are aware that the gas is a huge source of methane emission in the atmosphere, and it is 72 times more potent than carbon dioxide for 20 years. Next, please. So here is the list of World Bank's directly funded gas projects in Pakistan. So you can count that with one less. You may count it as dirty dozen investor. Next, please. And the World Bank Group, which includes its private sector arm, the IFC, and its guarantee agency, MEGA, they are still big players in fossil fuel finance. And the World Bank Group and IFC's strategy to mobilize up to $10 billion in investment to address the power shortage in Pakistan lead to supporting the construction of the country's first LNG terminal by the NGO Corporation, as shown in the list. So this shift to fossil fuels has been costly for Pakistan's environment and economy, and as well as its people, as the country had become highly reliant on imported LNG obtained at exorbitant spot prices. Next, please. You may assess the condition of the villages of Ibrahim Hedri, Redi, and Cheshma being surrounded by Angro LNG project from these pictures. So Indus Consortium is working with these communities for last many years, and several other LNG projects, including Inagase, Tabir, Daibo, and some others are in the pipeline, accumulated at the same place. Whereas the detailed analysis of the Tabir LNG projects, EIA report by Indus Consortium last year, that report shows that this area lies in the sensitive seismic zone, And the infrastructure required, like LNG terminals for increasing LNG import volume, poses serious environmental and ecological threats. And in addition, Pakistan's air quality index continues to put really key cities across the country, including Karachi, amongst the top 10 most polluted in the world. And further, the livelihood of the poor fishing communities in these villages is badly affected, as their pathways are abandoned in the names of security by these companies. And the locals are neither trained nor employed, with an excuse that they are not educated, they are not skilled. And the companies are not bothered to invest in the development of the surrounding villages, having no CSR law in the country. So thus the metropolitan city of Karachi, having the villages of Ibrahim, Hedri, Redi and Chashma, merely at the drive of 15 minutes from the elite class DHA, is the classical case study of the greenwash for how the IFI's intervention cripples not just the economies, but the climate justice, adaptation and mitigation in Pakistan. Next, please. So similarly, due to World Bank Group's twin brother IMF's fiscal regime, we all know that Pakistan government withdrew tax exemptions for renewables, which included a 20% tax on solar and wind technologies. And World Bank, it established in Pakistan in 1950. So it is working here for last 72 years. And Pakistan has received 23 loans in 65 years from its twin brother IMF. And don't you think that the role of IMF in Pakistan should be to support green growth across all sectors in the country by climate compatible finance as per Paris Climate Agreement? Next, please. Yes, above all, the story of the gas circular debt of Pakistan is another big chapter to discuss here. So according to Pakistan Economic Survey 2022 and 23, the circular debt of gas has increased to more than 1.6 trillion rupees. The economic vulnerabilities attached with LNG supply shocks in the global market have rendered Pakistan energy insecure. But the global IFIs are still tend to increase proportion of gas in energy mix and industrial consumption of Pakistan. Next, please. So we want to reiterate that the International Environment Agency and IPCC have clearly stated that there can be no more expansion of oil and gas in a 1.5-degree pathway. So with regard to Paris alignment, as a representative of Pakistani civil society, we are concerned that the door has been left open for gas as a so-called transition fuel. So can a new appointee of the bank, Mr. Ajay Banga and other World Bank Group shareholders explain how they will rapidly evolve the Paris alignment methodologies to rule out gas and align it with science? Next, please. And one big question of the day is that do 33 million flood affected people of Pakistan not deserve debt to climate swap? Shall Mr. Ajay Banga adhere to the Paris Agreement, which says that the global north will continue to support climate action to reduce emissions and build resilience to climate change impacts in developing countries? So really, Pakistan do not need your loans, World Bank Group, which are ultimately going to be paid by the flood-affected poor people, women and children as taxpayers. We really need $30 billion for the rehabilitation, and we want reparations. So I would like to end here that the UN General Secretary, Mr. Antonio Guterres, well said that polluters should pay. So we really want to say that for World Bank that they should come forward and take their responsibility. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fiza, and thank you for those really key questions, as well as strong statements, and bringing it full circle back to the realities on the ground in terms of the experiences felt by communities that you've documented, and the impacts of climate catastrophe firsthand. We will now move into a question and answer period, just a short, brief time. But first, I think there's one input already from Marge from Recourse. So over to you, Marge.
Thank you so much, Tanya, and also thank you to the speakers for sharing their experiences in Pakistan and Bangladesh and also in Indonesia. But in Vietnam, I think there also is a big danger that some of these cases will be repeated in Vietnam because of the IFC's funding for financial intermediaries, wherein when financial intermediary lending is when the IFC lends money to financial intermediaries, typically to banks, which then lends the IFC money to sub-projects, which can include fossil fuel projects. So this in itself is a big backdoor or a loophole where fossil fuels can still go through. We've seen this happen in the Philippines and Indonesia, where the IFC lent money to banks, and then which they went on lending to funding to coal plants. So the same thing which is happening now in Indonesia, Pakistan, and Bangladesh is also in danger of happening in Vietnam through these financial intermediary funding, wherein in May 2022, the IFC approved a 75 million loan to a bank called Southeast Asia Commercial Bank, this loan is intended to be used for the development of small and medium enterprises. However, there are two problems with this. First is that this loan can be converted into equity, which means the IFC will be exposed to problem number two, which is SeaBank's investments in oil and gas. SeaBank is up to its eyeballs in its investments in oil and gas because of its long-term investments in Petro-Vietnam Oil and Petro-Vietnam Gas, whose investments in that sector are amounting to more than 40 million USD, both in 2021 to 2022. So if SeaBank and IFC will agree to convert this loan into equity, then IFC is exposed to this oil and gas, even though the SeaBank will be made to agree to the green equity approach, which says that IFC's clients will not fund coal anymore. However, that is the main problem with this green equity approach. It is only covering exclusion of coal in investments and not oil and gas, which then has the possibility of being funded by the SeaBank in the future. And with the climate of fear and repression that is currently operating in Vietnam, these oil and gas projects might not go unopposed because of that fear that the climate and environmental leaders are facing. So we see now a situation wherein the people who will pay for these loans in the future are not being allowed to say anything about them. And then if they say anything about them, they will expect repression from the government. We know that the climate crisis is not happening tomorrow. It is already now. It is already happening. So for the speakers, maybe later in their, when they answer questions, what would be your recommendations to the IFC on their financial intermediary lending, and how can civil society relay the urgency of the climate crisis to the IFC? That's it for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Marge. And we can open it up for questions. I think that was it's really key statement, and actually just just before we do move into questions, it's a reminder, as was raised in the very beginning, that at this point, there are several activists and civil society advocates who have been threatened, and 4 specifically of them are in jail in Vietnam, one of whom is an environmental lawyer, and as of last week has vowed to go on hunger strike until death, saying that he is standing up for justice for communities and for freedom for the environmental defenders that have been put in jail. So in solidarity with them, we'll move over and open it up for questions, and then before closing in about 15 minutes.
So one question from Madhuresh Kumar, to me. If there are not any more questions to me, I can respond on that. Tanya, may I go for that?
Eddie, go ahead. I don't see any yet. No hands up yet.
Okay, thank you. Madhuresh, so we started raising the issues to Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank since 2018, when the project approved and they started financing for that. So in early 2021, the local people, 6 local affected communities, they filed a complaint to the Project Affected People's Mechanism, PPM, of Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. So after delaying, they finally came to visit in January 2023, last week of January 2023, to the communities. And after going back, maybe after 20-25 days, they replied that they are convinced with the sponsors' explanation of on compensation and environmental destruction, and we found that they didn't go to the communities and they didn't go to the project sites where the destruction happened. So we are now preparing for the next actions, like criticizing the findings of the PPM process, and also we are preparing to go to MEGA or IFC, MEGA accountability mechanism system. But here you are right that AIIB already got their money from Shapoorji Pallonji Group, because they sold the project, half of the project, against for almost double of their expenditure. So they paid up the loan to AIIB, and they got this guarantee from the MEGA. So that is it. We are trying to we are working on that things to go to MEGA. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Mehdi. Are there other questions from anyone? You can either pop it in the chat box or raise your hand.
Could I try and respond to Marge's question about the IFC?
Go ahead. And then there's one follow-up question. Actually, before we go to you, Pam, there's just one follow-up question, I think, to Mehdi about the AIIB and the Unique Magnet project, and what the implication is for the project on other MDBs. So maybe over to you first, Mehdi, to follow up, and then to you, Fran. Is that okay? Or Maybe Mehdi is dropped off. Go ahead, Fran.
Yeah, sorry, Tanya. Any specific questions to me?
Yeah, about the unique McNugget on the Paris aligned, the classification of it as Paris aligned.
Okay, so McNugget project is another tricky and another betrayal to the Paris as a Paris aligned bank, betrayal of AIIB. So the McNugget project, it is just 13 kilometers far to the southern direction from Dhaka city, and Dhaka city is one of the most polluted cities in the world, along with its own, some twins, and like Karachi and Delhi is thus, always Karachi is the first, Dhaka second, and Delhi third, or Delhi first, Dhaka second, Karachi third, or Dhaka first. These three sister cities. Okay, so they are building another power plant just 13 kilometers far from the city, and it will ruin Dhaka city once again. That's the first thing. Second thing is the project itself. It's going to start commercial operation by maybe last quarter of 2023 or first quarter of 2024. So it is not going to phase out by 2050 again. So that's the second thing. Third thing is according to their own EIA study, ESIA, environmental and social impact assessment, the power plant will use more gas comparatively than the other similar types of power plants. So it will emit more carbon to the atmosphere than the other power plants which are nearby. Fourth thing is the power plant is is situated just by the river of Meghna, where other around 7 power plants are running now, and Reliance Group of India is going to establish another power plant there, and also Anlima Group is going to establish another power plant there. So it is just like a what's called hotspot of heat generating area of the country. Fourth, I should mention that the company didn't pay adequate compensation to the landowners, and some of the lands taken really using the social and political power. And fifth, the capacity payment is really higher than the other comparatively other power plants in the country. So these are the issues related with McNugget power plants. We are working on that. Maybe already Recourse, NGO Forum, ADB, and Bangladesh Working Group jointly published a fact sheet on the power plant. You can find it online, and I'll give you in the chat box. Thank you.
Thanks, Mehdi. Over to you, Fran.
Yeah, thanks so much. I think Marge asked a very interesting question about the IFC, and I think it was around what we could do to try and be persuasive towards the IFC to address expansion of gas through financial intermediary lending. I think it's a very difficult question. I mean, partly because the IFC itself has already recognized that they can't align with the Paris Agreement now. All the other institutions of the World Bank are aligning this year in July 2023. But IFC has committed only to align its operations with the Paris Agreement by 2025 because of the complexity. And this is because it's supporting private companies through financial intermediaries, and it can be very difficult for the World Bank and the IFC to keep a handle on exactly where the money goes once it's been given as loans or financed through financial intermediaries. So there's more to be done in terms of how they monitor what's happening to the money, but also to ensure that the same environmental and social safeguards are applied to private sector companies. So I'd say that it's probably the most urgent and important part of the puzzle, in the sense because the World Bank and the IFC are wanting to catalyze more private sector investment in development in general, but obviously that will also go towards expanding the energy sector and gas in particular. And so if there's a dash to expand private sector engagement, then it's also equally important that those investments don't go towards expansion of fossil fuels or gas, and that they support human development and are transparent and accountable. So I haven't got the answers really about how we persuade the IFC of the importance of this, but I think that if we're going to receive warmly the greater private sector engagement in this area, then they've got a massive job to do to make sure that they're not supporting fossil fuel expansion. Thanks.
Thanks, Fran. Okay, so we have just 2 further questions before we wrap up. One in the chat box is from Petra. Some gas plants like Unique McNugget are labeled as hydrogen ready. Is this a trend that's happening in other countries? And what is your response to this and other myths that are allowing gas financing to continue? And then the further question that has come up for any of the panelists to respond to is that it would be helpful to see how everyone considers the change of leadership and what are thoughts on what that will mean for the climate agenda at the World Bank beyond these spring meetings. Over to any of you who have a response for either of those. Andre?
I would like to answer Petra, but not sure. Is this now?
Go ahead.
Okay. So yeah, Petra is asking, some gas plant sometimes is labeled as hydrogen ready. Is this trend is also happening in the other countries? And yeah, for Indonesia, I think one of the main campaign or main promotions about the gas and also hydrogen for now is because just if we can co-fire gas power plant with hydrogen under the name of transition technologies, for example, they can claim it as relatively green, and then they can claim it as one of the strategy to make sure that we can still repurposing the gas power plant. So I mean, there's two-sided. The first one is this is one of the labels that they sold to justify the new gas power plant development. But another thing is hydrogen ready or co-firing with hydrogen at this moment under the name of the transition technology as part. They claim it as strategy to make sure that you don't have to fully retiring fossil fuel power generation assets such as gas power plant, rather than you can just refurbishing some part or retrofitting some part, and then you can just co-fire it with hydrogen, and then your renewable energy mix will be increased. So I think that's the case in developing countries such as Indonesia and any kind of transition technologies. And then unproven technologies is heavily being promoted by many countries, including for now is mostly promoting by Japan. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Andre. Any other inputs on either Petra's question or the question, the bigger question, the big broad question of what's next with the World Bank new president? and climate agenda. Go ahead, Fran.
Yes, I'm happy to come in with my opinion about that. I think so the appointment, or at least currently AJ Banga hasn't been approved, I don't think, as the new president, but will be shortly, because I don't think there are any other candidates that have been put forward. I think overall people think that he's got a greater commitment to climate change or addressing climate change than Malpass. So that's got to be on the plus side. But he has a significant background in business. He was the executive chairman of MasterCard. And I think that there's a lot of concern that he doesn't have the background in development that is really necessary to lead a development bank like the World Bank. So whilst he might have some good credentials on, or at least his personal opinion on climate change seems slightly more reassuring, he's not a climate change denier anyway. I don't think that we necessarily think he's going to be the transformative change that we might have wanted. And I think part of that is because he's not democratically elected. It hasn't been a transparent and open process. And he's been nominated by the US as the next leader, and his approval will go through on the nod. So, you know, what we've campaigned for years is for a truly democratic process where countries can put forward candidates in an equal and fair way, and people who understand the need for sustainable human development. And I don't suppose that he probably fits that picture, but he's probably an improvement on what we had before. Thanks.
Thanks, Fran. And I think if there are no further questions at the moment, as Fran popped in the chat box, you can always email any of us. And then for the closing, I'll just move over to a colleague of FISA, that Indus Consortium, and that would be Hussein Dawar, the Executive Director of Indus Consortium. Over to you, Hussein.
Thank you, Tanya, and hello, everyone. I would like to extend sincere thanks to all speakers for their valuable participation in today's important webinar on World Bank Group support for fossil gas in Asia, which is very important question, I think, globally. We are grateful to Ms. Fran for sharing the highlights of Stop Funding Fossil Gas in Asia study. And we have seen that it is alarming that the World Bank Group and the other MBDs and MDBs and the private sector are fueling money in the fossil gas projects in Asia and globally. As friends has mentioned, that they are providing technical assistance and through policy lending, direct and indirect finance, which will definitely undermine the targets of limiting the temperature increase to 1.5 degree by 2050. So the Fran shared the eye-opening report, which will definitely enrich the arguments of climate change campaigners and the activists who are engaged nationally, regionally, and globally on climate change issues. We are also thankful to Mr. Andre, who has represented the Trend Asia and for sharing his perspective on fossil gas in Indonesia. And he said that World Bank is providing technical assistance and support for gas LNG development in Indonesia. We are also grateful for the insightful talk by our friend Hassan Mehdi from Clean Bangladesh for sharing the example of Bhola IPP project in Bangladesh, which he shared that polluted to the water bodies and thousands of farmers lost their livelihood due to inundation. He also highlighted about the land acquisition issue and the capacity payment issue, which are also similar, the case of Pakistan as well. We also are thankful Fiza Qureshi for her insightful views about the gas financing issues in Pakistan, especially about the Tabir LNG project and other projects which are financed by different, the MDBs and also the private sectors. Last but not least, thanks to Tanya from the NGO Forum and ADB for well moderated this webinar. Tanya and friend, Recourse and the NGO Forum on ADB are always there to support the climate campaigners in Pakistan and especially CSOs of Pakistan, and providing technical input to make these campaigners more powerful and impact oriented. So we are very thankful for the support of the NGO Forum on ADB and Recourse since the beginning of these campaigns in Pakistan. And we look forward to work together with all of experts for the promotion of the green financing. At the end, I'm also thankful for all participants who actively participated in the webinar and shared their views, perspective, and insights about the development of fossil gas in Asia. Hope we'll meet soon with another topic. Thank you again. Thank you. Over to Tanya.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to step in for Tanya because unfortunately her line has dropped. But just to pass on her thanks to everybody for joining the event today and for the excellent contributions. And thank you, Hussein, for your wrapping up. I really appreciate that. So really look forward to engaging with you further, and please don't hesitate to email me. My email's in the chat if you'd like some follow-up information, and we look forward to continuing to work with you. Thank you very much for joining. Goodbye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.